Soccer versus rugby. This topic typically escalates right into a thrashing of soccer for being too soft, or conversely rugby being the barbaric practice of brutes. So instead, let's dive right into the point of this video and let's look at what makes people love soccer and what makes people love rugby, and dig a bit deeper into the aesthetics of both sports. Let's start off by looking at the very items that allow for play. The round ball brings to mind continuity, smoothness of play, natural motion like a perfect sphere rotating on without interruption. It symbolizes that stylish, dance-like motion of soccer. The ball is like a continuation of the player and his dazzling kinetic movement. It's the player's predictable friend. The oval ball carries in its geometrical shape the inherent arduous and awkward counterintuitive complexity of rugby. It's pointy on both ends, thus making it more aerodynamic, like a projectile weapon would be, evoking the rushing dynamism and smothering aggression of the game. The ball needs to move quickly from hand to hand and from body to body, and move through the air with pressing speed. It's unpredictable, difficult to handle, like an extra worry or obstacle to the players on the field. Now, a quick look at the practical reasons for why soccer is so widespread. Association football, soccer, is by far the most played sport in the world, and one of the main reasons for it is its completely straightforward nature. Anyone, anywhere who looks at a screen airing some soccer understands what he's watching. Not the case with rugby. It's the most popular sport on the planet, and surely the sport with the easiest set of rules, which two things have to be somewhat correlated. It's easy to understand why it's such a popular sport for video game consoles, as it also even reaches outside fans of the actual sport. And the fact it fits the video game format so well, with easy commands, says something about the practical playability of the sport as a concept. Other sports are much harder to adapt to the gaming platform. It's the most accessible sport to play and requires minimal equipment or setup, and is very flexible on its numbers of participants. You don't have to be 20-odd players on the pitch, or need a specific setup, and that's why so many cultures adopted it. Some kids in poorer areas have been seen playing with a rolled-up sock, or whichever makeshift improvised concept for a ball. There's also the physical and social aspects in soccer's accessibility. Anyone can play soccer. You don't have to be huge and spend an eternity in the weight room, and you don't have to be middle, upper class to play and get really good at it. On all those levels, rugby is much more restraining, dangerous, and exclusive. Just look at the rules. Many kids complain about not getting them for a while after they start out. This now brings us to the more interesting style comparison between the sports. Soccer is more instinctive and comes more naturally. All players must possess similar skills to be on the field, whereas rugby has specialized positions. As mentioned, the rules in game are straightforward, and much of the appeal comes from that fluidity. Although slower than rugby, soccer is more fluid. Soccer is like a marathon. Fans ease into their couches and connect into the trance-like viewing through the TV. Rugby is like a boxing match. There's a ton of punchy, adrenaline-boosting action for a round, and then a little break ensues before it goes full speed and wild again. In comparison with soccer, other sports like American football, baseball, cricket, or rugby are so jerky, syncopated, and often interrupted. At soccer, an entire game of 90 minutes can feel like one long continuous motion. It's also one of the least physical team sports out there, and the emphasis is put rather on a combination of pure technique and speed, not size or banging. The fan base particularly enjoys that finesse aspect of the sport, as the most praised legends of the game have all demonstrated crafty cleverness and silky command of the ball, which couldn't be said of rugby or American football. Because the sport exists outside crunching physical contact to gain any ground, to even be relevant, and forces players to become nimble magicians on the field and display an impressive ease with quick, complex maneuvering of the ball, utterly in control. An overwhelming rush of testosterone won't do much for you in soccer. Of course, any sport requires a collected, cool head, but rugby is quite opposed to the points that have just been described. The oval ball enthusiast will be looking for the big hit, the excitement of testosterone-heavy collision. Structure and player IQ are indeed essential, but the fan is driven by his attraction towards hard contact and direct confrontation. The scrum, enormous crunching tackles, and carrying the ball in dense traffic with defenders flying off in every direction are a major part of the appeal for the sport, which conflates with the epic character of rugby. There are fierce rivalries between nations fulfilled in the most direct, aggressive way. Visually, no sport looks more like a battlefield swarming with two armies going head-to-head in epic warfare. As opposed to the swervy, elegant nature of soccer, gritty contact is seen as heroic in rugby. It symbolizes the commitment of the individual to the group, and is heralded as the ultimate proof of genuine human quality, a seal of reliability, and of having the right mindset, the right culture of the game. It is sacrificial, a concept that resonates very strongly in any society, even well outside the realm of sports. That sacrifice of a player putting his body on the line to stop a giant coming his way twice his size in his tracks, or around other dangerous areas on the pitch, harkens back to the primal instinct of defending the clan and its heritage, defending the village. And there is no better way for a youngster to have the hard-earned respect of his elders bestowed upon him than by showing great sacrificial ability, to suffer without ever showing it. That pat on the back he'll receive by the seasoned veteran is a token of his personal approval, that he may one day be that seasoned veteran himself and bear the responsibility of protecting the tribe. It's a bonding ritual. All of those crossover values between rugby and life, that strong relation between the sport and nation, are inherent to the very spirit of rugby. And it's no wonder more traditional parents send their children off to rugby school to instill that sense of selflessness and good character, well before the prospect of making them into a pro sportsman. The individual cannot thrive on his own in rugby, by the very rules of the game. If you're tackled, you have to release the ball and hence risk losing it straight to the opponent, as symbolic punishment for isolating yourself from the pack. Even the largest titan is eventually put down at some point over the 100-meter pitch surface, and if alone, will lose the ball. At soccer, if a player is brilliant and crafty enough, he can keep hold of the ball for a while. The rules of the game don't force him to lose possession, and a whiz of the game will make all the difference in the world whether he's on the pitch or off, and there's no substitute for a deadly striker. The finisher isn't quite as essential in rugby, as even the top attacking backs very largely depend on that forward pack. Wingers don't win games in rugby, and soccer, strikers often do. So one can say the individual counts more in soccer than in rugby, when the outcome of the entire match depends on that goal being scored. The striker, or finisher, is a necessity for a winning team. So soccer puts much of the onus on that one messiah who can liberate a team and an entire nation with his heroics and unique magic touch. And the fan is very receptive to that one-man infatuation, which is why we see so much scrutiny and over-glorification of the superstar, a lot more like basketball than rugby. Of course, this all comes from the immense difficulty of scoring a goal in soccer, while scores or tries occur much more often in rugby. The most common scoreline in an English league game is 1-0, and just one try scored in a full match would be a rarity in rugby. While in rugby, it's the multi-compartmentalized system with various phases of play and wide array of skills and crafts by possession played that make it so exciting for the fan. In soccer, it's rather that simple, suspenseful allure of the rare, ever-elusive goal being scored that drives the fan ultimately to love the game. He'll appreciate all of the intricacies and finer details during the game outside of those euphoric moments, but it is the goal the fan invests his time for. Tries in rugby are a powerful source of hysteria too, but there are plenty of examples of high-profile games where it wasn't the tries that produced the happier lot on the day. And it's thus quite understandable why soccer pundits celebrate the goal through such an extreme ritual, whereas rugby pundits are usually more composed after a try, simply because it doesn't mean as much.